Dr. Manchanda, first of all, thank you so much for taking out time to speak with us at BW Wellbeing World. I've known you for many, many, many years. As a child, I've seen you at AIMS, making contribution in the field of cardiology. But I think your biggest contribution was, if I remember correctly, was the research that you did on how yoga can positively impact and even manage the heart condition. Can you tell us a little bit about how did you think about it, what is it that you did, and what was the conclusion that came out of it which transformed the relation of yoga with cardiology?
Yes. Thank you very much. You are quite right. I was the first one to do research in yoga in All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Started somewhere in early 90s. At that time, there was nobody, cardiologist, who was interested in doing research in yoga. The reason I got interested into yoga was that I was looking for a cost-effective method. You see, although All India Institute is a place where charges are very minimal, but still patients will come from outside. They will spend some money in the hotels, even in small procedures, and they were getting it again and again. Anybody who got heart disease will get it again. With a high blood pressure, they will come again and again. Medicines they can't afford, they are not very. So I was looking for a cheap method. Then looking at the literature, it looked as if yoga could be a method. So at that time, I had to do a study. You see, although the yogic literature said that it could be good, useful in heart disease, but there was no literature available. So I did the first study in patients who had blockage in the arteries, 2 or 3 arteries. They were not willing for surgery. Half of them I put them in the yoga group. We trained them in yoga, whatever they could do. You see, many patients, you must remember, who have heart disease at 70, 80, they can't sit on the floor. Right. So we did chair yoga also. All of them could do pranayam, they could do meditation and some stretching exercises. Those who could do asanas, they were also. So we did with the collaboration of a center where we called the patients and asked them to stay there for 6 days.
Right.
So they had the food there, they had the training also. But the most important thing we found in our study was we called them with their spouses. Because if a single person does yoga at home, everybody thinks he is possibly not a right person. So what we found is that the spouses were a big help. So we asked them to do after 6 days to do it at home every day for an hour a day. And the spouses were extremely good in getting the compliance done. And we were also asking them to do the compliance. At that time, video, etc., was not available. Right. Proper 90s and all. These days, of course, we can check them with videos. So we asked them to do this for 1 year. Those people who were given yoga, they followed for 1 year. The other persons were given the conventional therapy. And at the end of 1 year, we found that there was a marked improvement in people who were doing yoga. Their pain in the chest decreased markedly. Their treadmill test improved, their cholesterol also improved, the quality of life also improved, and their weight also reduced, and diabetes and blood pressure also came down. Although the number was small, only 50, but we did find, in comparison to patients who were not doing yoga, and we did find the most important finding was that people who were not doing yoga and meditation, many of them needed angioplasty, bypass urgently. But those who were doing yoga, none of them needed it. So we published this, you see, because this was published in a index journal and all. And from that time, I think this is an article which was quoted at least 1,000 times, because it's one of the earliest articles. At that time, when we sent it to the American papers, they were not ready to accept this word yoga. They said, remove the word yoga. I said, no, we can't, because it's a yogic lifestyle. No, they said, we even asked, Dean Ornish had done a small study also. He also did not use the word yoga. That was a classical study. He also done it, about 40 cases. But those cases were having 40% blockages, okay. 30, 40. So we didn't accept it as a cardiologist. If from 40 it becomes 35, it means nothing. But we, for the first time, did more than 70. Then our program was user friendly. We asked them to prepare the food at home. In Dean Ornish, what he did was he gave them vegetarian food in the hotels itself. He just supplied them, and so it was not a very user friendly. And then it was, so we did for the first time in the world this study, which was published, and from that time the interest remained. And from that time, I thought yoga has the potentiality, even so-called advanced. We did not find a reversal completely, but 2 or 3% decrease was there. But on the other hand, they did not need bypass angio. That was a very good thing. And so we hypothesized that the type of blockages, we changed the nature of blockages, became stable, so they don't cause heart attack and all. So that was a thing, and from that time, I got involved in yoga research and all.
And so, it is it is very important, the point that you brought out, that people were cooking food at their home. So this was a sustainable thing. It was not changing a lifestyle to a point where they could go back to or fall back to something which was not good. This is something which they could do at home.
This is true because, as I said, we allowed the spouses to join them. When they stayed for 6 days in the yoga center, they went to the kitchen and see how these people are cooking without much oil, without much this thing. And these ladies got expert in those 6 days. And that's why the compliance was so good. Because at home, you see, sometimes the things are different. But if they see it practically, they saw it and then they repeated at home. So it was a user friendly program.
Patient who's consuming the food may have a different mindset, but if the care system at home is not supporting it, then the whole purpose is lost. But when you look at cardiology, are there certain cases or certain level of conditions where we say that, listen, I think any kind of stress, including yoga, is not advisable for you? And while I ask you this, I also understand that there are two aspects of yoga. One is the physical asanas, etc. The other is meditation. So when you're giving an answer as to who could do yoga, who should not be doing yoga, what part of yoga is not to be done and what part of yoga could be done, if you can share your thoughts based on your experiences.
Yes. You see, the inclusion criteria included patients who could do yoga. For example, a person has a deformity in the limbs, etc., with very severe osteoarthritis, or he has very bad lung condition so that he cannot. But we found that majority could do it. As I said, the compliance with the meditation was almost 100%. With the breathing also it was about 90%. But with asanas it was less than 50%. But everybody could do so-called stretching exercises. Now become wiser. You see, now we know there are certain asanas not to be done. By patients who is in heart failure, for example, he cannot touch his feet, etc. He cannot raise the legs, etc. So I think every patient we screen those who are heart disease patients. In our sort of study, we had only patients who did not have heart failure, but they had angina, they had blockage of the arteries and all. So we were able to do most of the things. Young people were able to do asanas, but not the. And we took very simple asanas. As I said, in spite of that, the compliance with the asanas was less. Then we reviewed the literature. We found that out of all the three, meditation has the maximum effect. There were studies with transcendental meditation. They did not do any breathing, etc. And they were equally good and all that. Similarly, there are now studies with so-called mindfulness meditation, which also shows benefit. So the most important factor seems to be that it is the control of stress, because stress can cause heart disease. You see, once stress occurs, it changes the hormones, the bad hormones that produce catecholamines, etc. It changes the sympathetic, etc. So it can increase the blood pressure. So it is seems to be stress control seems to be the main factor in controlling the heart disease.
This is interesting because my father was a heart patient. He died because of a heart condition. And every time they would go to a doctor, and the doctor would say, "Ki stress mat lo." And he would come, he would always ask a question to the doctor that, "Doctor साहब मेरे को बताओ कि stress कैसे नहीं लेते हैं?" So I'll ask the same question to you. How not to take stress?
Yeah. You see, this is a question which is asked by almost every patient, and now I am experienced enough. So I tell them, what is life? Yoga tells us life is not a stress. We know that it is written in all the ancient scriptures also, that life is it's happiness, unhappiness. It is success, failure. When something good happens, you do not have stress. Why don't you have it? Because you think it's normal. When something bad happens, you think something unusual has happened. You get stressed.
Right.
So that is also normal. So that's what it says. The outside things you can't change. We say in yoga the biggest achievement is if you can change one person. That is myself, a single. If you can change, that is yourself. Outside things will not matter. What people want to say is, no, that fellow is causing me stress. They want to change 7 billion people. Not possible. We can't even change the weather outside. For example, I like hot weather. Cold weather will come. What will I do? Will I cry all the time? I have to adjust. So, same thing. Life is not a straight line. So, if somebody says, I mean, we saw so many patients. He says, my boss is giving me. I'm telling you the example of our first. My boss is giving me the stress. I said, we can't change the boss, but do these practices and all. After 3 months, he says, my stress is gone. I said, what happened? Did the boss say, no, he's much worse. I ignore him. I know this is his habit to do it. So, what we try to tell them is, remember what life is. Everybody knows, I think, theoretically. It's practice which is difficult. So, it is happiness, unhappiness. In the house also, children will listen to you, they will not listen to you. With the spouse, there will never be full agreement. Sometimes there will be discussions. So, these are quite normal. People start thinking it is abnormal, and that is why the stress occurs. There is nothing called stress. We create stress because we think that is abnormal which is happening. So, the best way to control stress is we tell them that you understand what life is, but they understand it doesn't come just like that. You have to practice it. Like this gentleman said, took 3 months before he could ignore it. He could not. So, I think just like if you know exercise is very good, but if you are not doing it, will it benefit you? No. You know yoga is good, but will it benefit you unless you do it? And that practice it. It's a practical discipline. That's important. I tell them that you have to practice it, whatever it is. Later on, your attitude changes. I was asked, how long should you do? I said, 24 hours. They said, how is it possible? I said, suppose I am talking to you, you say something bad to me. If I don't lose my cool, if I remain calm, that is yoga. Yeah. If I am eating, I am doing yoga. It's called mindfulness eating. So, what we do is when we are taking food, we are watching TV, we are discussing all the problems. That is not yoga. Yoga is you concentrate on that and think positive. While walking, I am doing yoga. This means I am not discussing politics. People do, I have seen, discussing all sorts of stories. But if I am only concentrating on that also. So, yoga is nothing but concentrating on one thing at a time, which seems reasonable, and thinking positive. Because if you do something, something will go wrong, surely, which is normal. So, any project, anything you see, in the marriages, for example, the fellow says it's stress. I said, no, it's not a stress. There will be some failures, 80% might be a success. So, this is normal to have little failures here and there, but that is not abnormal. People think this is abnormal, and I always say this. Every human being's life is ups and downs. If there was no failure, you won't know what success is. I tell you, God has made it very nicely. He has, every scripture says, you go to Gurdwara, you go to Gita, Sukh or Dukh. Both things are important. If you only have Sukh, you will not know what Dukh. So, I think this understanding is also important. And then, because then once they do meditation, they also they start looking inside, and they are not bothered about outside things. What is happening normally is, you see, if somebody says good, we are happy. If somebody says bad, we are. So, my switch of happiness is somebody else. I tell you example of a person who got a heart attack. His servant broke a cup which was costly, maybe 1,000 rupees, and this fellow got so annoyed, he thrashed him and he got a heart attack. So, I said, why did you get it? He says, my servant. I said, how costly was 1,000? I said, now you got 2 stents, you have spent 5 lakhs, and suppose you had broken it yourself, what will you do? He said, I will not bother about this. So, this is exactly. So, I think we always say, if you are under stress, don't react immediately. Later on, you can think it, cool it up, and that's all. And so, I mean, these are so many ways of you manage the time, etc. also. And we tell them there is nothing called stress, there is something called eustress. It's physiological. So, if there is no, you see, you don't have to get up early morning, that is physiological. Little stress is important. But if it goes beyond your capabilities to cope up with this is called distress. That causes disease. And it's a long period of time. It is the biggest culprit. Now, I have seen people getting angry and dying also. It can cause even, it can cause heart attack. I have seen many times. So, stress is a very strong factor, not only for heart disease, high blood pressure, but also diabetes now. It has been shown clearly. And also, of course, it can worsen asthma, etc. So on.
Sir, over a period of time, have cardiologists, people who have, always focused on that I want evidence-based stuff, I want scientific background, the acceptance of yoga in managing a heart condition among the cardiologists, has it changed or is it still not accepted
No, it
completely?
has changed. You must remember that there are now large number of studies available. For example, in high blood pressure, the commonest disease in the world, there are at least about more than 100 studies. I agree they are small studies and all. Many are randomized also, and each one of them have shown there is a modest decrease of blood pressure. So the effect is so much that it has come in the guidelines, European guidelines. They say non-pharmacological use yoga and meditation, because stress can cause high blood pressure. So it has come in the international guidelines, which are not Indian guidelines; these are Europeans. Similarly, there is a International Society of Hypertension. There also it has come. So it is coming slowly. In diabetes also, I am told that it will be coming. The evidence is now accumulating in diabetes also. Similarly, we have done a study that after angioplasty or a bypass, if you do yoga, then it is very good for rehabilitation. It will also come because evidence is accumulating. So what? Why cardiologists are accepting it? Because there is evidence being accumulated. Initially, the research in yoga was very slow, but if you see in the last 10 years, it has exponentially increased, and good studies are there. And fortunately, from India, the largest studies are being done using the same methodology. For example, we did a study after heart attack stenting, what was called Yoga Care trial, which was presented in America. It was a late breaking trial. It was in 26 centers using the same methodology, because this was the criticism. You can do in one center, but can you do it in multiple centers using the same method? Because there is a little variation of yoga, you will remember.
Right.
Some people say more of pranayam, some more of asana, somebody say more of meditation. So combining these three, we did do that, and so the largest data has come from India, which has been accepted all over the world now. So it is, acceptance is increasing, but not as rapidly as it should be, because still the cardiology texts do not mention it. In the textbook it has not come. In the journal it's coming. Even guidelines are coming. It's a slow one, but I think over the period of time it will increase, because now the role of stress is increasing markedly, and therefore I think yoga is coming to prominence. It's being accepted now more rapidly as it was. I am into it for last about 30 years or so, and it was not accepted for first 10 years at all. They said no, well, no use. But slowly I have seen the changes occurring, and this is because of evidence-based studies are there.
Dr. Manchanda, thank you so much for speaking to us. I think what you have done in terms of the research that you did on yoga related to cardiology, I think is one of the biggest contribution to the field of cardiology, linking it with a form of lifestyle that has originated, pioneered from our country. So thank you so much for this, and thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on BW Wellbeing World.
Thank you. It's a pleasure talking to you.